Hi everyone, Mafari here. Welcome to Heliopolis Radio, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. Peace and blessings to the people. Yeah, how's it going, everyone? Mafari here. Welcome to Heliopolis Radio. I hope you all had a restful weekend and that you are ready for the week coming up ahead. Apologies for not releasing the podcast last weekend. I was just fatigued. I'd just been busy doing some stuff, so hopefully I'll have that podcast coming out sometime this week. And yeah, we're back at it again. This is a new podcast series called Retrospect. And so basically, what it's about is just me, recollecting or reminiscing on some of the movies, older movies, by the way, which I have found to be very profound or at least meaningful in a sense. And not to say that new movies aren't that. I just feel like, I guess most people relate that things that you watched at an earlier stage or maybe when you're younger, they always seem better than things that come afterwards. And maybe it's a maturity thing, maybe it's just growing older, and maybe, everything comes and changes, but there's some things that still, from the past that stand out. And yeah, I felt like I should share some of those movies and films, how they, my thought process, how they influenced my thought process and kind of the deeper meanings I took from them. And so, yeah, I hope that in doing this, you can share some of the movies that perhaps in the past, because it's retrospect, that you've watched have, I guess, in a way, had a profound impact or influence on you. And so, not a profound impact or influence, that's too deep, but that you've really enjoyed and that you haven't really forgotten, the ones that have stuck with you. That's what I wanted to say. So, yeah, let's jump right into it. And so, yeah, the first one for me, there are a whole bunch of Marvel movies on this list, and they're all in series, and some of them are still going on, but for the most part, the one that I'm talking about is already concluded, and that's basically the Captain America series, right? And he's not my favorite Marvel superhero. My favorite is Spider-Man. Till this day, he's still awesome. I've always liked Spider-Man. I think, the idea of shooting webs out of your arms and singing around on buildings all day long, it's pretty fucking cool. So, yeah, anyway, coming back to it, yeah, the Captain America series, I found that really good because it was, of all the superhero movies that Marvel released, the most down-to-earth was the Captain America series, because if you look at his character as a whole, he doesn't have any profound abilities other than being a superhuman, right? He basically is symbolic of what it means to be a human in peak condition. And I guess the reason why that resonated with me, because there's a point where I guess his whole backstory, he was a scrawny little kid who wanted to just join the military to help his country, but because of his condition, he couldn't do so, and so he ended up volunteering for this program that made him into a super soldier. And super soldier not meaning like anything outlandish, just enhanced strength, durability, perception, all those basic things, peak human attributes. And so yeah, I just felt that it was awesome because it was kind of inspiring to see how how someone who is maybe of a weaker condition can still become something bigger than themselves at first. And I know it's kind of childish, but that was the basis of it. But eventually what it was that was good about it was just the truth, what it revealed about the world. I think that was what for me stuck out in the Captain America series, and not even just the world, but like real life situations, like how characters go through certain things. And so yeah, that was the first one, was that in terms of character, I mean, so to cut, I can't really, otherwise we'll be here for hours talking about what happened in the films and everything. But long story short, after he got his powers, he went off, him and a bunch of people, like a secret group or covert group of people went around, I guess terminating or trying to destroy the operations of this renegade group of Nazis called Hydra, who were using or planning on using whatever secret technology and stuff to, typical story, destroy the world or subjugate it and everything. And it's actually very deep, but that was just it. And so eventually they do it, they crack down on the final guy, the leader. His name's Red Skull. And so during the final battle, he ends up crashing. Captain America ends up crashing this plane with this thing called a Tesseract. It's an extra dimensional object, whatever, with supreme like powers to bend time and space and all that stuff. And he crashes it into the ocean in order to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. Obviously, little did he know that, as he crashed into the Arctic Ocean, the water was so cold that it froze him and left him in like suspended animation. And so eventually his body was recovered, and so was the Tesseract, unfortunately. And he realized he was discovered, I think, almost, they say it's 70 years later. But it was 70 years later. And you can imagine what the world looked like for him, right? Because that's how I enjoyed how they took the element of characters. They basically took someone who was living in a world completely different. Like, it was World War. The problems are different. Society was different. And then he just wakes up and he's in the future. And the future is a whole lot different than he anticipated himself. And more importantly, it's kind of the psychological component to it. I mean, because the first thing was that he had to face the reality that probably everyone that he knew at that time was dead. And so you have no connection to your old life and society at all. And so it's kind of like a culture shock, right? You have to literally shift your whole paradigm of thinking, the way you talk, the way you speak, what you eat, what you say, just everything. It was just like, it was cool how they basically portrayed a man out of time. He's like, it would have been better for him to just have ended his journey in that ice, but, to have survived it and to be forced to come back and engage the world again as Captain America, obviously. It's pretty interesting, right? And the funny thing is, everything in the world changed, but the one thing that didn't change was the use for like the brand Captain America. Like the propaganda machine was the one thing that stayed consistent through all those 70 years. And that kind of tells you something about society, right? How symbols and more specifically military symbols, people of like renown are always used as like political leverage, right? And when he comes back, he becomes that, he becomes that symbol again. And so, if you've watched all three movies, that symbol later leads to his downfall, because what it means to be Captain America isn't what it means to be himself, like Steve Rogers, right? And so that was the second thing that was really good about that movie series, was that they gave you a realistic view of the truth behind, wearing a mask and an outfit and pretending to be something, or not even pretending, but being something for the people, but not being something, like being something for the people that may be true to them, but it's not true to you. And so as the story goes on, his character, I guess it takes a much more deeper turn, because it becomes a question of his inner values being in line with whatever it means to be like a Captain America in quotation marks. And it's also about how he has to deal with the demons of his past, right? Because there was a lot of unfinished business in the past that he never came to terms with. And obviously, if you watch the movies, you find out that a lot of it comes back to haunt him. I.e. is one of his best friends who he thought had perished, ends up being a super soldier himself, and he's like an assassin that is, accumulated a massive kill list of innocent people, right? And it's ironic because when they were doing it together initially, they were doing it to help people, but in this new world that he's brought into, it's completely the exact opposite. And even that which he used to stand for is compromised. If you watch the Winter Soldier movie, which is really good, the shield that's supposed to represent the protection of the people is compromised, and it's actually being run by Hydra. So it's always interesting how everything is a complete flip over from what he dedicated and devoted his life to. So when you look at it, all that he had given himself to came to nothing, and ended up being what he had to deal with in this new life that he had, amassed. And so I think it was really good how they developed his character as a man conflicted by the truth of his present, but then, the lost possibility of his past, if I could put it that way. And yes, that was a really good part. And more importantly, it's also just interesting how there were a lot of concepts and ideas. It's ironic. Like, there's a lot of irony to Captain America series. Like, because we all know that, back in World War II, the German ideology, they believed in this thing called like an Aryan, like supposedly a prototype for the perfect like being, with blonde hair, blue eyes. And it's kind of ironic that Captain America is that, and he is in the opposite side. He's on the side that is anti that ideology, but he's the perfect, representation of it. So there was a lot of irony to it. And it's also funny that in the end, the organization that he was working for ended up being, covertly run by this renegade group of Nazis. And so it was just a lot of irony in that movie series, which was really, really interesting. But more so, it was just, again, character was really the really good part about it. I mean, each of the characters in that movie had a story of their own. As you've all seen the Civil War series, it was about, Captain America, it was about Bucky, it was about Iron Man, it was about everyone. It was about superheroes as a whole and the truth behind, the kind of the folly behind being a superhero, because everything is not true to themselves. It's kind of like a lie that people use to prevent them from facing their own past and their own demons. And so I think that's the one superhero movie series that actually had a lot of life elements that you could draw from, because I think even today, we have icons and everything, but in truth, if you look at from a Captain America sense, we have people like that in today's world. But if you look behind them, are they really true to themselves? That's kind of what that movie series told me, is that behind the propaganda, behind everything, there's a lot more to it. And so that's the deeper side of it. Sorry, it could go deeper if we wanted to, but another cool thing was the action sequences. They were pretty fucking crazy. They had no profound special effects like, crazy, superpowers, Avengers type thing, but the action sequences were phenomenal. These were just human athletes just doing things at a crazy level. You have parkour, and I think that's cool. I think that's really cool in terms of just how you can tell a story, right? Because I think where a lot of, fictional stories have lost, essence or energy is that they're not realistic enough for people to even relate to. I think Captain America, at least in a certain way, there are people that can at least, have at least emulated some of those things. We do have people that do pretty phenomenal things, physically, and it's not like anything outstanding. But it makes sense, and I think that was kind of what made it stand out to me. It was humble enough for you to kind of embrace as a whole. But yeah, that was really what I wanted to kind of. That was the first movie series that I kind of had to have a recollection of, and it was a really awesome series. I recommend you guys watch it. The action sequences are crazy. The music for the last two are phenomenal, but more importantly, if you watch it, pay attention to character, pay attention to the world, and pay attention to what it means to be human, because that movie series really, it showed a lot of that, and it showed us what it really means to be, what the idea of a superhero really is, in an actual, through honest, raw lenses, right? And so, especially in Civil War, because in the Civil War, the final movie series, it came to a point where people had to be themselves. They couldn't lie. They couldn't act behind an ideal anymore. They couldn't act behind a narrative, and that kind of split. That whole the whole premise of that movie created a split between heroes that were willing to continue to act and put aside their own personal integrity for the greater whole, and then the heroes that simply believe that the greatest service you could do to those around you is to stay true to your values. And so it kind of poses a very deeper question in terms of like you and society, right? What do you believe is the best way in, I guess, what is the best way in being of service to the community, right? And that whole movie was really interesting because there's no right or wrong. There's just it is what it is type of thing, and that's what again that movie series was excellent in showing you because a lot of the superhero movies, Marvel movies in particular, they're very out there. They're inflated, they're sensationalized in a good way. I mean, they all have every story, and I'll share some of the ones. They all have a really, really deeper element to them, but sometimes it's because of the extra element to it, the way it's so out there and how they're doing all sorts of crazy things that maybe are too, they're too meta-human for people to really, really embrace at in a human sense. And so, yeah, I mean, this is a one movie series that wasn't over imaginative. It was just really well done. And I think you can learn a lot from it about yourself and about society, especially if you watch Civil War and The Winter Soldier. There's a lot to learn about society as a whole and us, the way us individuals behave, how we think, and particularly when it comes to things like icons and all these things, right? So yeah, I recommend you watch it. It's the Captain America trilogy. I hope I didn't ramble on too long. Let me know how you guys found the movie series. It's definitely not the best Marvel movie series out there. I know, I mean, for most people it might be whatever, the Avengers, it could be Endgame, it could be the Iron Man series, it could be Thor, it could be whatever, it could be Guardians of the Galaxy. All of them are really great, but this series in particular was very, it was down to earth, and so it was really awesome, man. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this retrospective podcast on the Captain America movie series. Check it out. I think the last two were directed by the same people that directed the Avengers movies, which were, I mean, crazy in terms of not just about how much money it made. That doesn't really matter, but just in terms of how it was received by people in general. So yeah, check it out, guys. Thank you for tuning into this podcast. I rambled on a bit, but yeah, if you watch, again, I'll just say it, if you watch the movie again, pay attention to the elements of character, the theme of society, and what it means, the essence of what it means to be a superhero in quotation marks, and what it really comes with. Those things all come together in such a way that you understand that was a really well-told story, especially the last two movies in particular. And so, yeah, let me know if you guys enjoy the movie, or you thought it was crap, or you thought it was just another, superhero, garbage thing or whatever. Please let me know. I mean, it's always good to share these things. And yeah, thank you for tuning into the podcast. Peace and blessings to the people.